Welcome to the School Board Candidates Forum for Lexington School District One. We have together with us today the League of Women Voters and Lil Mood. Just 1 minute. To the Candidate Forum for Lexington County School District 1. My name is Mary Beth Hill, and I'm Chief Communications Officer for the district. This afternoon, we welcome members of the League of Women Voters, and we thank them for sponsoring this School Board Candidate Forum. Our moderator this afternoon is Lil Mood. Lil is a retired public health nurse who spent her career with the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. She has extensive experience in home health care, nursing, and agency administration, environmental risk communication, and community involvement. In addition to her voluntary service to the League of Women Voters since retirement, she serves on the governing board for the Comet Public Transit System, Chapin Beautification Foundation, and Chapin High School School Improvement Council. She also volunteers at Chapin United Methodist Church. With her, also from the League of Women Voters, is Pam Craig, our timekeeper this afternoon. Just a reminder that this candidate is being live streamed. The public is watching the meeting at https://www.youtube.com/c/Lexington1Live. Thank you. And I'm now turning this over to Lil Mood.
Is a nonpartisan organization, and our interest is in making sure that voters are informed so that when they know about the candidates, when they go to prepare to vote before or on November 3rd. So I would ask us if we would just stand and begin this forum with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now, according to the South Carolina School Boards Association, school boards have 4 roles. 1, creating a shared vision. 2, applying that vision. 3, measuring and communicating the vision. And 4, championing the vision. And school board members are not in charge of the specific development or implementation of school programs. And therefore, our questions for this forum are designed to ask about broad policies and visions and not specific programs. The questions were chosen from a list of questions that were developed by the League of Women Voters, and I'll be the ones answering those questions. I want to just tell our viewers who the candidates are that are here. And so when I call your name, if you just raise your hand so they'll know which one you are. Michael Anderson, Anne Marie Green, Mike Griffin, Catherine Henson, Travis Price, Brent Powers, Chris Rice, and Chelsea Snellgrove. Thank you. All right, so we have, there are 10 candidates running for the school board, and we have 8 of you here this afternoon. That's a wonderful representation. And all of the candidates were invited to the program. I'm just going to take a minute to go over the rules of how we'll work this afternoon. You are seated in an order, a numerical order, and in the interest of fairness, when I ask questions, I'm going to rotate who starts the first answer, because you'll all be asked one question, and then each one of you will answer, give us an answer to that question, so that the same person doesn't have to either answer first or last every time. And then after the questioning is completed for all of the questions that we have, Then each candidate will have a 1-minute closing statement. And so every candidate will respond to every question. And we'll have a 90-second time limit on each answer, and we're going to hold you to that. And so Pam is our timekeeper, and what she will do is raise a paddle when you have 30 seconds left in your 90 seconds, and then at 15 seconds, and then when she raises the stop, that's a hard stop. And if we're running short of time when we get near the end of the time, and we want to end by, do you have a closing time specifically, Mary?
We wanted 90 minutes.
Just 90 minutes altogether. Then we may reduce that to 60 seconds per question at the end if we just want to get as many questions in as we can. Does anybody have any questions about how we'll be doing this? Okay. Well, then we'll just get started right away with the questions. And the first one is, why are you running for the Lexington One School Board? And we'll start with you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Ms. Mood. Before I get started, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for taking the time to do this and recognize the fact that this year we're celebrating 100 years of the day or the time that women got the privilege to vote in this country.
It's a big year.
I'm running for the school board to continue the work that I've started. This will be my second term if reelected. I retired from the school district and had long thought about it, even when I was employed here, of how I could give back to this district and to this community. I've served for the town of Lexington. I've served in a capacity there to the advisory council, to town council. I've also served on the planning commission for the town of Lexington. And Lexington has been home for my family and I going on 23 years. Both of my children graduated from Lexington High School, and I don't mind telling anybody there is no better district than Lexington One. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having us. I'm running. My wife and I moved to Lexington in 2003. Largely, we wanted to start a family, and largely because of the school district here. We moved from Columbia. So we've raised our children here. We have two boys. One is a 9th grader at Gilbert High School, another is a 7th grader at Gilbert Middle School. So we have a vested interest I have a vested interest in making sure, or ensuring our district remains among the best in the state. And I really do believe we do have one of the best districts in the state. Since we've lived in Lexington, my wife and I, we've volunteered a lot. We serve our community. I've served in several different capacities, leading different community outreach organizations. And when thinking about my next step or what I want to do next, I could think of no better way to make an impact in my community than to serve on our school board. I think it's that important.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, and again, thank you all for hosting this. I'm running for school board for a variety of reasons. One, I like that it's a nonpartisan role. I think we are all before you as leaders in this community who want to advocate for the children in this community. Two, I think all of us in communities should ask, how can we give back? And we do this through a variety of ways. You don't have to serve in public office to give back. People step forward and help through their churches, through their schools themselves, and through their work roles. But I believe as a school board trustee, we can actually steer and direct and guide our superintendent and the leadership team in structuring essentially a stronger public school offering. And the goal of our education system is to get our students either college or career ready. And we work hard to do that. Because when our students leave this county, or even stay in this county, and are graduates of a Lexington One education, they become our future leaders. So the better we do with our public education system, the stronger this community will be in the future. And that's why I'm running.
Thank you. Mr. Rice.
Well, I'd like to echo what everybody else has said, and thank you all for hosting this forum and moderating and so forth. Really, the reasons that I'm running is I feel like Lexington One is the best school district in the state. However, just like any continued success that you have, there's always room for improvement. One of the things that I have seen, I am not a person who's a native of Lexington, but there has been over the last several years an influx of people who are not from Lexington that have moved in. And they have some different views, some different concerns, different thoughts. And I think it would be good if our leadership would actually reflect some of that diversity that we have. Bottom line is I've always done different things in the school district, done a lot of volunteering, a lot of speaking, kind of gotten a district-wide view from being on the Lexington Educational Foundation the last 2 years and now being the vice chair of Mission Lexington, which helps me kind of see a lot of the needs in the community. And so I really just want to be in a position where I can serve and just, do what's best for kids, no matter whether they're on one side of I-20 or another side of I-20. And so I have a priority that I stand on. We'll probably talk about that a little bit more, but it's represented by an acronym called SHAPE, which stands for STEM emphasis, high quality education, accountability and transparency, prioritizing school safety, and E, empowering Lexington One teachers. So that's why I'm running.
Thank you.
Hey, my name's Kathy Henson, and I was born right here in Lexington, and I had the privilege of attending Lexington One schools and graduating from Lexington One, so I know the quality of education that we have here in Lexington One. When I graduated, I attended the University of South Carolina, where I received my bachelor and master's degrees and chose to come right back here to my hometown and teach. I am passionate about public education, and I have a desire to see our district continue to succeed. I have children in the district, and I have spent many, many hours serving as PTA president at their school, on the School Improvement Council, the Superintendent's Parent Advisory Council, and many other opportunities here in the district. And I just wanted to take that passion and give back. I think it would be really valuable to our board to have an educator on the board who can just give insight to what educators are doing. And I am a great listener and communicator, and I really want to, I think I'd be a great asset to the board. So I'm excited about this opportunity. I am honored to be able to run. So thanks for coming.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Griffin, and thanks, Lil, for holding this. I'm also an educator. I retired from the FBI in 2006 and chose to come back into education, teaching at Gilbert briefly, and then Depelian, and now I teach at the Alternative Education Services Center. One of the things that I like is everything that everybody said is that we're a great district. We doing it the right way, and we just need to kind of tweak some of the communication skills that are coming down to us. I would like to see us do a lot more with things that, like just getting information out to the teachers, and the teachers are your whole engine, so to speak, and I think that they need a little bit more representation. The students are the product, and quite frankly, we're turning out a good product, but we could use a little bit more help. And I think that those are the reasons that I've chosen to run. Other than that, I have no hidden agendas, so to speak. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm Anne Marie Green, and I am a product of Lexington High School. I have 2 children who have graduated from Lexington One schools, and I have a 10th grader who is still a student at River Bluff High School. My parents moved to Lexington in 1977 because the Lexington One schools were phenomenal, and they have continued to be phenomenal. I have a deep love for this district, and it's been such an honor to serve as a school board member for the last 4 years. And I can just tell you, whether it's been going to White Knoll Elementary School to see 6-year-olds programming computer games through our Code of the Future program, or going to an FFA celebration at Pillion High School, or going to Meadowglen Middle and seeing 11 and 12-year-olds serving their community on Better World Day, or attending our special ed graduation and watching those remarkable students walk across the stage and achieve something that nobody thought they could, or attending our ESOL celebration, where these young children who came to us without English speaking skills not only master it, but do that on top of their regular schoolwork, or our adult ed graduation, where there's not a dry eye in the room when these adults have gone back and overcome great obstacles to achieve something nobody thought they would. My love has just deepened for this district, and I just want to continue serving and help it to keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chelsea Snellgrove. Some people call me Mandy. I am running as a parent of an elementary schooler in the district, and as a graduate of the district. And I too, as a graduate of the district, share those same sentiments about how awesome I feel my education was. And I'm running to represent viewpoints that sometimes don't get represented in boardrooms, and I feel like they belong there. I feel like we have a duty to bring up issues. Excuse me, let me take a deep breath. I do get a little nervous in these situations, and that's part of why I'm running. I think they should be inclusive, and everyone should feel like they can come in here and talk to people who make decisions and have conversations with people who make decisions. So I guess that is why I'm running, and I think that it's important that we keep that tradition, that democratic tradition, and we allow everyone to participate, regardless of station in life. We got to do it together, you know. And my kid and all kids have a big problem that they're facing, lots of big problems. But, you know, I think that COVID specifically has given us a chance to think about, you know, how can we solve these problems in the future that they're going to face. And it's important that we come up with sustainable policies, and that we don't, and that we keep that at our heart, because we don't want to keep on. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, so now we'll move to question 2, and Mr. Price, we'll ask you to respond first to this question. What is the top challenge facing Lexington School District 1, and what do you recommend as a solution?
That's a great question. I'm going to give you 2 answers. The first is, and COVID actually exacerbated a lot of these issues, but they were still prevalent before. And but we have huge achievement gaps. So I feel strongly that you know, the district, I think, does a good job overall of having their eye on the ball as far as achievement gaps, and are working towards solutions to close those gaps. Just right now, COVID has certainly exacerbated those, and we have a lot of work to do to close the gaps, whether it's, you know, socioeconomic reason, special needs reason. We have a lot of at-risk kids, so there's a lot of gaps that we need to close. And public education should be there for all students, all kids, and we need to make sure that we do do our job to educate all kids in this district. The second answer I have, and I feel strongly about this. Our teachers right now, I feel like we're gonna lose a lot of teachers. Our teachers they feel isolated, they feel disenchanted, and frankly, there's a lot of anger toward teachers right now, and to me, it's unwarranted. You know, the COVID situation is not the educator's fault, it's not the teacher's fault, but they are getting beat up, and there's a lot of angry folks that are beating the teachers up. So I feel like we're going to lose a lot of really good quality teachers, and our good quality teachers make our district the best. So we need to make sure we do what we can to keep those teachers here.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Ms.
Thank you. So I'll
Powers.
piggyback on Mr. Price. So it's interesting when you have something like the COVID pandemic, because, I mean, we struggle with this at the hospital, is you think you communicate well, but the reality is that we can always communicate better. So I think the COVID pandemic has put a spotlight on some opportunities in Lexington One with respect to how we communicate with our employees as well as our parents. The other challenge is to continue to develop a culture of mutual understanding. And so what I've been asking and really pushing the people that interact with me is, please talk to your teachers, and teachers, please talk to your parents. Because of the 2 entities in our community that know our kids the best, It is our parents and our teachers. And I wish there was more dialogue between those two entities, because obviously they will come up with the best solution. So with that, though, we have had to use technology in ways that we've never had to use before. We've been technology-driven here at Lexington One, but I think where we need to continue to develop, and COVID has put a spotlight on this, is our leverage and use of technology instruction. I tell everyone our teachers know how to teach, but now they have to use a different language. And anyone who's been in a foreign country understands how hard it is to navigate when you have to speak a different language, and that's what our teachers and students are having to do right now.
Thank you so much. Mr. Rice.
As far as the top challenge facing Lexington One, one of the things I would say is, yes, I've heard the candidates talk about COVID-19 and how that has revealed, a lot of gaps and things that we have. But, one of the things that we're still faced with beyond COVID-19 is the growth that is happening in Lexington District One. Since 2018, there's more than 7,300 additional newly registered voters. And as those voters come in, there are kids that are associated with that. Let's just say if only half of them have kids, so you're 3,500. You're talking about roughly anywhere from 5 to probably 7 elementary schools coming into the district. So I think we do need to look beyond just 2020 and where we are now and start looking towards 2022, 2024, and saying, how are we going to handle that growth? And like one of my platforms in SHAPE is high quality education for all students, no matter what their area or zip code is. So I think as we grow, I think we have to make sure we're not just delivering that high quality education, whether it's STEM or whether it's, world language or whether it's the arts or whatever, not just to one particular group. I think we're going to have to figure out how do we handle that growth and continue to deliver that high quality education to all students, no matter where they are as our district grows.
Thank you. Ms. Henson.
I kind of echo what a lot of the people before me said, but I definitely think the growth here in Lexington One is probably one of the most pressing issues. I can remember being able to drive down 378 and it was just woods where there's Walmart and Hobby Lobby now. And when I was in high school, White Knoll High School wasn't here and River Bluff High School wasn't here. So the growth just in the last 18 years is exponential. And so I think with that growth, we're going to see challenges, especially with teacher retention and recruitment. And this is something that I'm really involved with on the university level. I work with the National Science Foundation. We have a grant, and our goal is to recruit STEM teachers. And it is so challenging. Just this year, the University of South Carolina is only going to graduate 3 people certified to teach high school math. And that means Lexington One will probably have more than 3 openings next year for math teachers. So it's such a challenge with this growth to maintain the teachers. In addition to that, the board is going to be challenged, the district is going to be challenged with, do we build new schools? Where do we build these new schools? How do we pay for these new schools? Do we raise taxes? Do we pass another bond referendum? There are so many things to think about. How will we pay for the technology and things that the students need? So ultimately, the growth, I think, is a major challenge for us.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin.
I follow along with almost everything that's been said here, and it's growth, technology, and I think teacher retention. I was privileged enough to teach with Gilbert and Pelion, and now I teach at the Alternative Education Center or Services. And I'm going to tell you, those are some dedicated professionals down in Pelion. That is like a whole nother world that a lot of us don't understand. And when I came to Alternative Education Services, I got to experience River Bluff and some of the other folks that are there. They're all students, and they're all teachers, and they're highly professional. We spend a lot of time on the phone. You talk about contacting parents. That's almost 90% sometimes of what we do in a week is to contact the parents and say, we need to have your help getting this done. We contact the district office on very much of a regular basis to get things settled for students as well. I just like to think that our goal is to keep our teachers and keep our programs flowing.
Thank you, Sarah. Ms. Green.
I agree with the growth conversations. However, I honestly think that the biggest challenge facing Lexington One right now is communication. Because the communication landscape just in the last few years has changed so dramatically. You know, it used to be that a school district could communicate with press releases and formal statements, which as a public body, you need to do because you've got to have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed and all the legal ramifications. Well, by the time you get a press release out, the information has been posted by 100 people on social media, and once that wildfire takes off, it is so much harder to put out a wildfire than it is to stop it from starting. And so I think communication needs to be more nimble and responsive. We are in an era where, you know, a well-intentioned parent on social media has just as loud a platform as our school superintendent. And we want to make sure that the information that is communicated is quick, accurate, and transparent. And so I really, you know, I think a lot of the issues that we have sometimes are from misunderstandings and misinformation that just take off before we can get the accurate information out there. So I really think communication is our #1 challenge.
Thank you. Ms. Snellgrove?
As you mentioned at the outset, I think that the board is challenged with setting out a vision for what kind of system of education they want to have, what the community vision should be for the school district. And I believe that right now our vision is a little bit flawed in that we're looking at growth from a pure economics perspective sometimes instead of seeing the holistic picture, and it's not sustainable. We need to tailor our vision to the future that is at hand for our students, for our children, which is that, you know, we're not even sure if they'll have tillable land in their lifetime. They could, you know, we've got to address these challenges. We've got to address these challenges. And we need to put that above all economic jargon. You know, our visions are antiquated. They were built in the Industrial Revolution, which is unsustainable. We need to rethink our relationship with the earth. We need to create an education system that values the future of collaborating and critical thinking and creativity instead of path ethos of disconnection and conformity and consumerism. And seeking good futures for our children isn't necessarily always about being career ready or college ready.
Thank you very much. Mr. Anderson?
I think that our immediate biggest challenge right now is returning to face-to-face 5 days a week. We seem to be clearly divided on that. Our parents evenly divided on it. They either want them back 5 days a week face-to-face or they don't want them back at all. This is evident in our citizens' participation at our board meetings. Our teachers are also evenly divided as to whether they want to return to the classroom full-time, face-to-face, or whether they don't want to teach anymore. They're afraid. They don't want to come and be exposed and take the COVID-19 virus home to their family. All of this is understandable. Long-term, we have been, for as long as I've been affiliated with this district, concerned with growth. And that's not going to change, but how we handle it will have to improve, needless to say. We're running out of places to build schools. I know that when we purchase land, there are a number of people that are not happy with where we are going to do it, but we have to build them where they're needed. And I think that communication, as Ms. Green said, I think that is one of our chief problems as well. We're not doing a very good job of getting word to the community. I know that it is our responsibility to help do that, but what vehicle would you use? I'm adamantly opposed to the social media thing that we're doing right now.
Thank you, sir. All right, well, we'll move on to question 3, and Mr. Powers, we'll let you start with the first response to this one. Do you have any specific concerns about the budget for Lexington School District 1, and if so, how would you address those concerns?
Thank you, Ms. Mood. The budgeting process is an interesting process, and that's why we take so long in the spring to work through it, and we have multiple readings of the budget. Specifically, what makes it difficult is there's always more need than there are resources. And so, obviously, the senior leadership team has to take in, and the process generally starts with each school identifying their needs, both from a pupil enrollment and therefore teacher capacity, as well as programming and all the different costs associated with operating a school. That then rolls up and is balanced across our myriad of schools because we want to offer a consistent education product. And then we have to start working with the county to understand the tax base and therefore the tax revenues. The fixed parts of our budget are the federal and the state funding. The only lever the district and therefore the board can pull is essentially the taxes to our county and our community. And we have to be good stewards there, so we have to demonstrate value. And so that's the balancing act. This past year was a unique budget year in that the state did not provide step increases for our teachers. We were faced with a decision to provide a step increase when there's no state funding, which is typically where the majority of the funding comes from. We were not able to do that. We've had some discussions around that and are hoping for a one-time bonus, as we discussed at our last board meeting, to meet that need, because we would like to reward our teachers.
Thank you so much. Mr. Rice?
I would say as far as the budget goes, just kind of echoing what you've already heard from Mr. Powers, I think our needs at each of our schools and our areas are so different that, like I mentioned earlier about the growth that's taking place, as that growth takes place, you're going to have a budget each year. And as I've been talking even here on the campaign trail to, certain parents, a parent in Pillion versus maybe a parent in River Bluff or Lexington, depending on a simple thing like graduation packages. In some cases, for some parents, it may not be a financial strain, but in some areas it creates a financial strain. So what I'd really like to do, my concern is that as we look at the budget across the district and across the schools, that we're budgeting things properly to make sure we're taking care of the areas based on some of those needs. I guess the other specific concern is what are we going to do long-term with mental health? Because I think COVID-19 is going to have some long-term effects on our students, on our teachers, everybody who's been associated with this. And I'm just wondering, how are we going to go about incorporating that into the budget or tying into maybe some other community resources to leverage some of that mental health? Because I think that's a big concern. And then the final concern I have is, just like echoing what Dr. Powers said, I think step increases are important, but it has to be sustainable, whatever we do. But we've definitely got to take care of our teachers.
Thank you. Ms. Henson?
So regarding the budget, it's something our family does, and I think it's something that's important for our district, is just to keep a balanced budget. And we have to ask ourselves, what's most important to us? And ultimately, it's our students and their needs, their physical needs and their emotional needs. Are those being met? The safety of our students, that's a major expense for our districts, and I know that this is something that our district has really been working on, especially with the bond referendum that was passed, putting in extra methods of safety for our students. Competitive teacher salaries are really important. If you look at the salaries of other districts around us, and you can see some are paid more, some are paid less, and so I think making sure that our salaries are competitive so that we can entice the most highly qualified educators to our district. And it's really important that we are educating 21st century learners. Do we have the technology needed to teach them how to be productive citizens in the 21st century? Do we have resources for them to continue their learning? And so those are just some areas I think we should focus on with our budget. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin?
Coming from a background with the federal government, I'm not sure I'm even qualified to speak on the budget. But the bottom line is I like everything that I've heard, and I especially want to re-echo a couple of things. One is mental health, teachers, and teachers' competitive salary. At where I teach right now at AES, we do not have a psychologist. my understanding is, and I may be wrong on this, the district does not have but 3 social workers that are able to go out and interface within the community. I think that's important. And in order to keep teachers, you're going to have to support them and pay them, and you're going to have to back them up. I'm fortunate. I have a good administrator. And I feel very strongly that when we lost our psychologist, we lost a large portion of what we deal with on a day-to-day basis at AES. So those are the things that I look at, and the growth will be taken care of as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Green.
So was actually very pleased with our budget this year. Our finance department has adopted some new strategies and did some belt tightening, and they were able to contract some areas and find some money to be used, because it's all a little bit of a, there are a lot of moving parts in our budget. And one of the other things that they did was we've been undergoing a pretty methodical reduction in student fees, which I think really is helpful to families, those kind of hidden costs of attending school. And so I've been real pleased with those efforts. One of the things about having a public school budget is all the things that are out of our control. For example, IDEA. The federal government, IDEA took effect in the late 70s, and the federal government is supposed to provide 40% of the funding for those mandates. They provided this past year about 14% of the funding for those mandates. That doesn't mean we get to provide 14% of the services. We have to provide everything that is mandated. So the gap comes from local funds. So state and federal mandates dictate so much of our budget. I'm very pleased at how our budget comes together, and I think it preserves our taxpayers' money and accomplishes what we need to, but there are a lot of things that are out of our control.
Thank you. Ms. Snellgrove.
I can't propose to be a budget expert. There are other candidates you could choose to be your budget expert, but I do offer a few thoughts on the matter, and that is that we can be creative in our budgets. We can look at different ways to organize our budgets that make sense, as long as we come up with common goals. Like everyone said, we need to make sure that our teachers feel supported and have the resources that they need. And that goes not only beyond pay, but just feeling like they're respected and have that support from leadership. And also, in every financial decision, again, it needs to come down to sustainability and what are we sacrificing when we grow for the future? And, excuse me, deep breath. I'm not the most gregarious person, but anyways. But COVID has been a big eye-opener, I think, to a lot of people from outside of the boardrooms to see just how much more support is needed that schools aren't getting, and we should all be demanding that, because these are our kids and they need the resources to be able to be 21st century learners, which is going to take a lot more than we have been giving them in the 20th century.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson?
Of course, when we started the budget process this year, we were hit with COVID-19, and that sure put a wrench in the works. A lot of state and federal funding was cut. The teacher pay raises that were promised by the legislature last year were also victims of those cuts, and I would love to see us be able to go back and make good on that, because I do feel like it was a promise to our teachers. The budget process itself is it's deeply involved. I think that we've done, historically, this board has done a great job handling the taxpayers' monies. They have always been good stewards of the taxpayers' funding. Going forward, we have a lot to work on, and as some of the others have said, mental health, that is going to come into play, and we had started Project Hope in the last year or so. Jeff Caldwell, who is our Chief Student Services person, is in charge of that, and we were moving forward with it quite well until this hit. So we've got that to pick up. We've got STEM, we've got a number of things that are still to be dealt with, and hopefully in the coming year, our budget will start to improve.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Price?
Well, yeah, we're certainly going to see some budget challenges. The pandemic has caused quite an economic impact. The step increases, or lack thereof, are huge. I go back to what I said earlier about teacher retention. I think we're going to lose some teachers, not only just from how they're feeling right now, their feeling of isolation and whatnot, but also just not receiving the step increase. So we need to do what we can to retain our teachers. So as Mr. Anderson said, just make good on that promise of that the original budget promised them. We just need to keep up with technology, keep up with our growth, and just need some folks on the board that are going to be fiscally responsible. And it's okay to say no to some things. Just need to be, as I said, fiscally responsible, and just have some good common sense when it comes to the budget.
Thank you. All right. Well, we'll move on to question 4, and Mr. Rice, you'll start us off on this one. And as you would expect, some of these questions will touch on things that people have mentioned individually, and it gives everybody else a chance to chime in. So this question says, are you concerned about student and teacher safety in Lexington School District 1? If so, how would you improve student and teacher safety? And if not, what is the district doing that creates these safe circumstances?
Wow, you put me on the spot. That's all right. I hate to keep referring back to kind of my platform shape, but I took a lot of time to invest in, what is it that I stand for? And the P in shape is prioritize school safety. And so the example that I gave before is I have a daughter who graduated from the district. I have a child who's a 9th grader right now in the district. He's at the College Center out at Gilbert High School. And one of the things that I've told people is, as a parent, which I know there's probably a lot of parents out there listening, when I drop my child off at the bus stop to take the bus to school, or if I take him and drop him off myself, one of the things I want to know is that once I've turned my child over to the district, that they have the proper protocols in place to protect him from any outside threats. But at the same time, when I pick him up from the bus stop or when I pick him up from school, I want to know the safety protocols have been in place to keep him safe from inside threats, or health threats is what I call it. And so I think it's very important for us to dedicate some resources to that. One of the ideas I had is that we also form maybe some kind of a community committee with health professionals, school resource officers, and so forth, for us to talk about in the future, if we have a pandemic, how will we respond to it, and kind of play through some of those what-if scenarios to keep our children safe.
Thank you. Ms. Henson?
So school safety is something that I actually feel pretty good about here in Lexington One. I've mentioned this before, but another part of my job at USC is that I supervise student teachers. So I've had the opportunity to go in almost every high school and middle school in the Midlands, in all 5 Lexington districts and in both Richland districts. And there have been moments where I've walked into a school and just gone where I wanted to go. No one stopped me. No one checked my ID. I've walked into Lexington One schools where I've known the person behind the desk by name, or a school that I taught in, and the doors have been locked. I've had to ring the doorbell to get in. They've scanned my ID. And so for that safety purpose, also the times at my kids' school, I feel really good about things that have been put into place here. But we can't become complacent about this. We have to always be aware. We also need to listen and ask our parents, our students, our teachers, are there areas of concern? Do you have health concerns as far as safety is going? And then we really need to take that seriously, not just listen and say, okay, thanks for telling us, but are we going to take action as far as what those people are saying are their safety concerns? And I think that if we continue staying focused and not becoming complacent, we can continue to have great safety here in our district.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin?
As a former law enforcement officer, safety of schools and school children was paramount during my time. And one of the things I think Lexington has done very well, it has taken those steps and made it incredibly safe from things like school shootings, intruders, things of that nature. We train for that in the schools, and I think it's well worth it. Teachers take a very active role in that. However, the health concerns are something that is new, and not all of us have a background in health concerns. We don't have these in our school, and if we have students, which we don't right now, we need these. We also need to be taking temperatures if we had students. We have to have a way to do that. Our school has no way to allow us to open the door without leaving our classroom on one hall. And so those are things that are important. And I think, though, as we go forward, the nurses, the administrators that are going to help us do this are going to make the changes that are necessary to make sure that the health as well as the safety of our students is paramount.
Thank you. Ms. Green?
I've been real proud of what Lexington One has done over the last few years as far as physical safety in our schools, with the secure entrances in all of our schools, and the protective film on the windows and the SROs in the building. We've also, the mental health counselors in our schools through Project Hope, the partnership that we have with the Lexington County Mental Health Association to make sure that we are addressing mental health needs. One of the things that I just absolutely loved a few years ago, our middle school and high school students, their IDs have a suicide helpline number on the back of their ID. Just, a quiet reminder that if they need help, help is available. Our schools have anonymous tip lines that students and staff can call if they need assistance. But I think the health safety is something that, we really weren't thinking about until 6 months ago. And as part of that, to me, is that we need to listen and take care of each other. There's been a big conversation in our district for the last few weeks about returning to school and how can we make it safe? And we just need to work together to make sure that we are protecting our students, protecting our teachers. Our teachers' mental health right now is so important as they face going back into a classroom that's filled with students. And so if we work together and listen, I think we will really address some of those concerns.
Thank you. Ms. Snellgrove?
Yes, ma'am. I think that the schools have done a great job this past month instituting all the safety protocols, the health safety protocols. I've noticed that it seems like it seems pretty well organized, the way that they've been trying to put our students' health first during this time, and it's very commendable. As far as physical safety on the day-to-day and going past COVID, from my experience, I never felt unsafe in Lexington One, and that's amazing. I always felt safe in these schools, and I don't feel like my son's physical safety is at risk, but I acknowledge that might not be everyone else's experience when they come to school, especially, people who might be historically targeted because of their race or socioeconomic status. And I do believe that, as Mr. Rice said, we need to form some committees in between different agencies, school resource officers, counselors, and everything to make sure that we're really listening to the students and their individual experiences and what makes them feel safe for each one of them. Because, whereas a cop might make someone feel safe, it might make someone else feel threatened.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson?
I think it's a sad commentary that the world that we live in today, that we have to provide so much safety for school children. I mean, that in and of itself is just horrible when you think about it, but it's the world that we live in. And we do an excellent job here in Lexington One providing safety to our students. There are a number of safety measures in each of our schools that you can't even see that are there for the safety of children. And I'll tell you, working alongside our teachers for a number of years, our staff in every school will do everything in their power to protect your child while they are in our care. There's much that we can still do. Like I said, there's still things with Project Hope that I hope will flourish and advance as we go forward. That is part of safety as well. And that's going to be needed even more so with this virus and all that we are putting staff, families, children, teachers, everyone through. But safety, I think we do a very good job with it here in this district.
Thank you. Mr. Price?
From a COVID standpoint, yes, I do feel my kids are safe at school. From a physical standpoint or a safety standpoint, you know, I also feel my kids are very safe at school. I know Mr. Caldwell, Mr. Spivey, and his staff and their staff, they do an outstanding job within the district for implementing things to make our schools as safe as possible. Our school resource officers do an outstanding job within each school that we have. And I do think it brings to light, though, mental health issues. That's why back in 2018, in March 2018, I started mentoring. It was after the late, and I don't remember exactly which school shooting it was, but it was in 2017, 2018 timeframe. After the latest one, I did start mentoring within our school district because of that reason, because I became very concerned about the mental health of our students. Started a program, implemented a program where I had recruited about 100 men to mentor within our school district. So I think mental health is a really big issue that we need to address. But overall, I do feel like my kids are safe at school.
Thank you. Mr. Powers?
Overall, Lexington One has done a great job in focusing on school safety. I do think as a board member, we have to have a healthy paranoia, however, about school safety. Of the things that keep me awake at night as a current board member, it is school safety. Because I don't think we can ever become complacent with that. We've been intentional with our bond referendums about building infrastructure in place, the secure entrances, the cameras, the doors that lock with both the 2008 and 2018 bond referendum. But what I was most excited about is you had asked earlier about the operating budget. Back in 2018, we engaged Project Hope because separate from structure, you need to arm your teachers, your counselors with the skill sets to identify students who are hurting that may become perpetrators, as well as staff members, such that you can engage them, meet their needs before they result to something dramatic like a violence at your schools. Hate crimes are difficult. I don't know how you combat that. That's a national agenda. But most of school-based crimes are by familiar perpetrators. So it's our job as a district to identify students and staff members who are hurting and to meet their needs and hopefully mitigate a violent outcome.
Thank you. All right, so we'll move to question 5, and Ms. Henson, you'll start off with this, and we've kind of had a segue into it because this question says, how would you suggest that the district address behavior problems in our schools?
Being the first person to answer a question is a little more challenging than having a few moments to collect your thoughts. Oh, behavior. There are so many different levels of behavior issues. You can start in elementary school simply, or in high school simply with talking in the class. And so I think about classroom management and what I would tell my student teachers who are dealing with classroom management or behavior. I think we need to have good communication with our students who are having behavior issues, and find the underlying cause of what might be causing this behavior. We need to check their home life, check their health. I think that social media is also causing a lot of anxiety for our students that might lead to some behavior issues that we're having in schools. I think that being clear with expectations and what the consequences are for those expectations are good. I think that making sure that we communicate with families and keep families involved with their students, their students' education, their students' behavior is really important, because at the end of the day, we want our students that leave Lexington One to be active in their communities, to be responsible, respectful young adults. And we can help our families with behavior that way.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin?
Make sure I understand this. This is about behavior in the schools, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I am very, very much a behavioral type of person, and I set clear expectations in my classroom, and I think most of the other teachers set those, that I teach with, set those same expectations. The district needs to absolutely set some expectations that they're going to back up 100%. If we are asked to do it, then they've got to back us up. We're already seeing some changes in things like, if you signed up for face-to-face, can you go to Lula? And there's been waffling on that. Now, if there's a mental health issue or there's a need for a student to move from one to the other, absolutely, have no problem with that. And we're not always privy to that information. I think you need to know your students. You need to contact their parents. You need to talk with your students. You need to talk with the parents. And your behavior problems in schools will disappear.
Thank you. Ms. Green?
Well, going back to Project Hope again, as part of Project Hope, one of the things that we put in the budget was an additional ABA, Applied Behavior Analyst, to assist with behavior and mental health issues. We have seen a widespread application of more restorative practices in our schools, which I think is a big part of behavior, addressing behavior and modeling, because a lot of our students come to us without a model of good behavior in their home. And so anything that we can do that's a restorative practice that isn't necessarily punishment, I think is beneficial to everybody involved. We've seen that as part of Project Hope with referrals to the Alternative Education Center, removing a student from a classroom, and then setting them in a punishment situation, and then returning them back to the school without, fixing the underlying problem. And so I've been real proud to see some of the things that we've been doing. Additionally, in our schools, beginning in the elementary school on up, we have crew meetings and advocacy groups for our students, and with our teachers, so that there are adults in the building that know our students and can mentor them and model behavior and intervene and talk to them and help them to improve their behavior in our school.
Thank you. Ms. Snellgrove?
Yes, I would like to, first of all, say thank you, Ms. Green, and the other incumbents for Project Hope. I think that's really awesome that y'all are thinking about these issues, and it really is really cool, and thank you. And I think that behavior issues need to be addressed individually per child. It doesn't it's not one size fits all. And as Ms. Hinson said, I think that every behavioral issue does have an underlying cause, and we have to get to the root of that in order to fix it, instead of just labeling a child disobedient or something and hoping that it'll fix itself. And it's a lot bigger than we realize, from a young age. I think that we should destigmatize mental health. We should have kids see counselors as, like they see dentists, and, they should be able to feel free to talk about their emotions and their feelings openly. And it starts from a young age, and that's where they're going to grow up to be able to handle their behavioral issues without requiring us to, or a system to correct it for them.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson?
Good behavior, just like bad behavior, is learned behavior. Anything can be relearned, unlearned, retrained. I think that Project Hope is without a doubt one of the best things that we've done to address behavior in this district since the district has been around. It's a very different world that we live in today, and we don't discipline children as we did when I was growing up. When I was growing up, we still had corporal punishment in school, and just for the record, I've never received corporal punishment until I was a 12th grader, and they only had to do it one time. But of course, that's off the table now, and so there are mental issues, and I think that's exactly where most of our behavior issues stem from. It's a mental issue, and most of it can be resolved through mediation, through just sitting down and talking. There are times when you need to be placed in in-school suspension. You may need to be excused from school for a few days to think about what you've done. Consequences for your actions. I think that's where we need to head with our behavior issues. That and Project Hope. Can't say enough about Project Hope.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Price?
Yeah, Mr. Anderson, I tell my kids that I was spanked in school with a paddle before, and they cannot believe it. Cannot believe that actually happened. But yeah, a few thoughts on behavioral issues. Obviously, it's got we have to set expectations, just like a parent at home has to set expectations. It has to be consistent discipline. You have to be consistent for all kids. You can't just have special attention for some and be less consistent for others. And I agree, the family involvement. If my kids do something to school, I want to know about it, and I'll certainly address that issue at home. I do love I did back when it was Focus. I did some mentoring at Focus, and I love that program. Alternative education school now. I love that program. I love the culture that it has. I've spent some time in that school, and the culture is not. I went into it thinking it was going to be almost the kids were there as a sentence, so to speak. It's actually more of a kind of a redirection, and it has a great culture and a great environment, and I love what that school's doing. I did back in a former time a few years ago. I actually spent some time in a classroom, and I had a kid that was particularly disruptive, and I voiced my frustration with the neighboring teacher, and she actually knew that student, and she gave me some good pointers. The kid just wants to be heard, and so she was actually a teacher that was able to get through to that child. So good teachers can get through to these children.
Thank you. Mr. Powers?
Thank you, Ms. Mood. I find it interesting. Typically, behavioral issues are conflict that's centered around differences in expectations. And I mentioned earlier that we all can do better communicating. So I think our students and parents need to communicate better what their needs are. Our teachers and leadership needs to communicate better what the expectations are. And if we can do so, I think we can reduce conflict. That being said, I think healthy conflict is good for us. I have it in my professional life. I have it in my personal life. It challenges me to grow. So for our students, we're asking them to become 21st century leaders. In order to be leaders, they have to learn to be lifelong learners. That doesn't happen unless they're challenged. That's what conflict is. There needs to be accountability. The standard is absolute. Yet I think as a leadership team and as a teaching team, we need to grant grace to get to that standard. As instructors and teachers, we need to have a curiosity, a healthy curiosity on the origin of that behavior. It's been my experience, typically when people get emotional, there's a physical, emotional, or psychological need that needs to be addressed. The quicker you can find that need and address that, the sooner you can meet that child's need and reduce the disruptive behavior. We need to have a non-emotional response, and ultimately, as an instructing group, we need to have a curiosity, because ultimately this becomes an opportunity for instruction and development of that child, and that's what we're about here at Lexington One.
Thank you. Mr. Rice?
Everything that everybody has said has been really, really good, and I just think from the perspective of both of my parents were public school teachers. And one of the number one things that a school teacher wants to have is they want to have an orderly classroom. But yes, there are, behavioral issues. And I just think what we have to do is, obviously we have to have school expectations, set classroom expectations, and have structures in place for dealing with issues, behavior issues. But we can't lose sight of empathy. We can't lose sight of empathy. Yes, there are some hard and fast rules, but sometimes we need to make sure we're continuing to educate our teachers, our staff, our administrators on how to communicate openly with students and with parents, because I guess the best way I could describe it is I'd say we've got to learn how to dig deeper, because sometimes if you dig deeper, you'll find out there's a story behind that behavior. And instead of just judging the book by its cover, saying, hey, this is what this cover looks like and this is what this student is like, and categorizing them, we've got to dig deeper. what's their story? When you find out what somebody's story is, many times you can understand what's the perspective that they're coming from. And see, hurting people hurt people. So what we have to do is dig deeper and find out why are they hurting and what can we do about it.
Thank you very much. All right. So we're on question 6, and Mr. Griffin, you get the first go at this one. And the question is, what can the school district do to ensure that students have equal opportunity for quality education?
First of all, I think that the school district does ensure that all of our students do have an equal opportunity for education. I think that they can offer different courses. I think they can offer different classes. They offer them already in different levels. They can ensure that their teachers are educated to the point where they understand different cultures that are going to come into their classroom. They can do a number of things with activities within the classroom to ensure that all of those kids get an equal opportunity. If they come from a home that would be not as strong as perhaps you would see in some other areas, they can reach out to those homes as well, offering help and assistance in other ways than the classroom. And I think that's a major thing. One of the things that somebody mentioned was the reduction or doing away with the activity fees, which I think is a tremendous thing. It allows a lot of kids to participate in sports. It allows them to do things that they normally wouldn't do. I think the one thing that stands out in my mind right now, even though a lot of kids aren't taking part in it, was the district's offer of a free lunch for all of the students as this COVID is going on forward. So, excuse me. But I think that's a fine example of it.
Ms. Green.
Like Mr. Griffin says, I think our school district is particularly good at providing equal opportunity to our students. You know, we have a number of centers for study around the district, and we provide transportation for those. Our programs that are offered in one school are available to students in another school. No matter where you live geographically in our district, what is available to the students is the same. One of the things that Dr. Little has talked about that really always strikes a chord with me is thinking about individual students and the headwinds and tailwinds that student brings to school each day, whether it's a parent that works overnight, or they don't have food at home, or they have a 504, because every student is different. And so I think one of the things, in a district that has 27,000 students, where we're trying to empower each child, it's it's a challenge to make the playing field completely level. But what our district is doing is addressing the needs of each individual student and assessing what does that student need to achieve their full success and be empowered to design their future. And I think Lexington One does an exceptional job of that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Snellgrove.
I agree. I think Lexington One does always try to put forth policies that will make things more equal. We have great opportunities here to our students, which allow them to learn about issues like inequality. I was grateful to be able to take a Holocaust studies class here at Lexington One, which opened up my mind. It was amazing that we offer things like that. And part of the challenge when it comes to addressing unequal systems is making sure that our kids learn that having equal systems is a value worth holding, that's one of our values, and it's important to teach that and have curriculum that we're able to learn from our history, and we have more inclusion in all across all strata. It's important to stress it not only in the policies the board makes, but also in what we're teaching to our children, the values we're passing on to our children.
Thank you. Mr. Henderson.
When you have a school district like Lexington One, it's one of the leading districts in this state. It's a very large district. It's a rapidly growing district. All of that being said, we're going to have diversity, and we have a great deal of diversity. We're a 21st century learning facility. and that would include all students. And I think that we do an excellent job here. We have many, many programs. We have the immersion program starting at very early ages. These students are in school, they speak nothing in the classroom but a foreign language. I think that's just amazing in today's world that we do these things that we do. I think Lexington One just does a very good job including everybody. Our inclusivity is I'll put it above anyone else's. And I don't think that there's anything else that we could do to make it more open, more inviting, and more welcoming than what we have here in Lexington One.
Thank you. Mr. Price?
Yeah, I commend the district and its leadership on the job they do for just creating the equal opportunity for education. I love the motto, empower each child to design their own future. I mean, I absolutely love that. And there's just different ways that each student can go, whether it's the technology center, whether it's college bound or not. So I do think that the district does a great job. Our district does a great job of not only offering just a good high quality education, but there's so much more that our district offers, whether it's free lunches or athletics, arts, socialization, counseling, and that's available for all students. So again, I want to commend our district for just creating the equal opportunity for all students.
Thank you. Dr. Powers?
So I would mirror the sentiments of the candidates, and I do believe we have an excellent quality education that is equal opportunity. However, I would add that it is not accidental. I think as a board, we worked with Dr. Little very hard through each budget process, and prior to him, Dr. Woodward, with being intentional and having rigor around making sure it's an equal opportunity. And in my mind, there's 4 different ways. One, you have to be metric driven. Dr. Shane Phillips leads a lot of our school-based metrics and provides feedback to us as a board on a regular basis how each school is doing, as well as by grade and subject matter. As you can imagine, with 27,000 students, with 60 to 100,000 parents, you don't want a vocal minority to sway you in your decision making as a board member. So we need to be metric driven, and we do that. We spend money on that, and there's accountability to that. Second, we have to be driven by our budget, because quite frankly, where the money goes is where the focus goes. And so you had asked earlier about how the operating budget becomes a very, very important factor in our yearly cycle as a board, working with the superintendent and his or her leadership team. We've got to be communication driven. We have a variety of advisory committees. Both student, parent, and teacher, they will tell you what is wrong and where the inequities are if you listen. And then finally, we have to be professionally driven. We need to continue to arm our teachers, assistant principals, and principals to meet the needs in the moment. And Dr. Little has brought to the district a professional development in wonderful ways.
Thank you. Mr. Rice?
Yes, as far as having equal opportunities for high quality education, I think I'll echo the thoughts of all the other candidates. I think we do a really, really great job of ministering to the different students. I mean, we have over 27,000 students, so you really have to think that's 27,000 different learning styles. And so between the 504s that we have and the 504 reviews and so forth, because each child's going to learn differently, I think we do a good job with that. Like I said, once again, you can't rest on, hey, I've done a good job. You have to continually ask that question, what can I do to improve? Even if you can just move the needle a little bit, you'll be fine. The other thing is, I think we do a great job as far as providing different opportunities, but we have to make sure that we focus on providing a well-balanced education to all of our students at each school. So they need to have opportunities, yes, to be in STEM subjects, English and language arts, social studies, but they also need to have opportunities for the arts. They also need to have opportunities for athletics. We need to make sure that we're being equitable as far as how we do that. And the last thing, just I think echoing what Mr. Powers said, is we need to make sure we're getting feedback from these advisory committees that we have. And one of the things I don't want to lose sight of, I think we can do a better job of taking feedback directly from the students and not just the parents and the adults. I think we'll learn a lot from that.
Thank you. Ms. Henson?
So I also agree with the things that the other 7 candidates have said. I think our district is doing a good job as far as equal opportunity for a quality education for the students in our district. We've met physical needs like food and transportation, access to books and technology and the arts. We also meet academic needs by hiring highly qualified educators. I've been really pleased with the quality of education that I personally received and that my children and my husband have received here in Lexington One. The next thing I'm going to say is something that I'm fully aware that this is something that's been implemented due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but I truly, as an educator and mom, think this is something that our district needs to have on their radar. And it's the quality of education that is being provided, as far as an equal opportunity goes, during hybrid learning. And I'm home with my kids on the 3 days that they're doing their hybrid learning. And the teachers have worked so incredibly hard to put together quality instruction for them for those days. However, not a day has passed where my son or daughter has not needed me for technology assistance or academic assistance. It might be, Mom, can you explain this math question? Or, Mom, we're talking about levels of the atmosphere. What does this mean? What? And they might need help with troubleshooting technology. And so I'm concerned about parents who might not have the opportunity to be at home during those days and help their kids with what they need, especially for the younger kids, or coming home late from work and then having to do it with them. So I just think we really need to be on our radar and just checking, just a pulse check with these students to make sure they're getting the quality education.
All right, thank you. Question number 7, and Ms. Green, you get to start with this one. And some of you have touched on this earlier. How do you propose retaining quality teachers and recruiting future quality teachers?
Well, I think that has been an issue we've been talking about for a couple of years, and I think we were really starting to make some headway. The legislature was on board, and they were, teacher pay raises. Our district has incrementally raised teacher pay because no teacher goes into their profession because of the pay, but everybody wants to be rewarded for doing a good job. And so teacher pay is so important. And one of the things that I love as a school board member is my opportunity to advocate for Lexington One at the state and national level. I've done that on a number of occasions. And I think it is so important to keep those lines of communication open with our General Assembly members and even with those in Congress and the U.S. Senate, because they're all part of this formula for us being able to increase teacher pay, because we would love to be able to do it with local funds, but we just can't overburden the taxpayers in Lexington County. And then I think just respecting our teachers and admiring them. When I was growing up, all of the smartest people I knew, the best students I knew, they were going into education, and that was like, oh, great, she'll be a great teacher. And now it's like, oh, you're really, why don't you want to do engineering or go to law school? We need to really amplify the teacher profession and let our students know that it is a worthwhile, rewarding, important profession that they should pursue.
Thank you. Ms. Snellgrove.
I agree with Ms. Green 100%. I think that's where it starts from. It's just making sure that we value our teachers, and of course that starts with paying them what they're worth and then some. We're one of the biggest, wealthiest school districts in the state, and there are ways we can get creative. We just got to buckle down and do it, because our kids deserve to have those teachers that want to be there. And it also goes back to, like Ms. Green was saying, making sure that we culturally value teachers. And it's kind of been a little bit shocking to see what's going on with COVID, as far as there seems to be some sort of divide between parents and teachers somewhat on some levels. And we need to start working together. Teachers need to feel valued by parents. We need to have more communication as a group, and figure out what we want to be, and have these teachers feel like they're valued as a community member and that they can really inspire change.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
Teachers are responsible for every other career that exists. If you have a career, you can thank a teacher. Our teachers are what make this such a great district. The people move here for the quality of education that Lexington One provides. And we need to do everything that we can to attract that top shelf, top quality teacher and retain them. We've lost teachers recently because of the COVID-19 and our response to it to some effect. Some don't agree with our return plan and have chosen to not return to the classroom, and that is really, really tragic. I know that we're going to make it through this, and through this together, we're going to make it. We'll go back to what I said earlier about the legislature. We did promise the teachers a pay raise last year, and we have not come through on that, and we need to do that. But money is not the sole answer in retaining great teachers. Making it a great work environment for them to work in, making it a great district, making this a good place to work, and I think we do offer that in Lexington One.
Thank you. Mr. Price.
I mentioned earlier that I feel like we're going to lose a lot of really good teachers because of they're not being heard. They feel isolated. They're getting beat up on right now by some folks in the public. So we need to stave off that frustration. Whether we need to pay them, of course, but just like Ms. Green said, just amplify the profession. I mean, it's the most important job we have, or most important job on the planet in my view. So we need to amplify the profession and just listen to the teachers, hear them, because they do feel isolated right now. They do feel like they're not being heard. I think as far as recruiting for our district, a couple things come to mind. I think our district sells itself. I think we do. The district does pay pretty well, but also I think that the district is attractive as one of the top districts in the state. So I do think teachers do want to come here and work for leadership, work for some of the leadership that we do have, because we do have some great administrators. Also feel like there's a lot of really strong professionals that may have lost their jobs due to just economic issues. The PACE program is an outstanding program that could be really sold to a lot of professionals that are looking for another career. So I would again just look at the PACE program as an alternative to recruitment.
Thank you. Dr. Powell.
So I think the question was, how does Lexington One retain and recruit quality teachers? I think it's threefold. One, we have to maintain a meaningful work environment. We've talked before that teachers don't teach for the money, they teach for the calling. And unless we maintain that work environment where it gives our teachers meaning and that fulfillment, we're in trouble. We talk a lot about the students, and we've heard a lot from our parents about being victims of the COVID pandemic, but I think our teachers are definitely victims as well of the COVID pandemic, because they are having to teach in ways that they never dreamed they would. It is not what they would pick, just like it's not what our parents would pick, yet it's the reality that we all have to face. Secondly, we need to continue to elevate the profession of teaching and make sure we maintain the respectful work environment that they have earned and deserved. It is definitely a calling, and I think as a community we need to have a deference to our teachers, similar to the ministry. Ministers have a special place in our community. I think we need to continue to elevate teachers and make sure they maintain that as well. And then finally, they need a thankful working environment. It's not a mistake that we all have performance improvements or performance evaluations at the end of each year where there are merit increases in all of our professional lives, as well as the potential for bonuses. And so we need to be respectful about their compensation. And so that's why, Mr. Stacy shared that we've had close to 3 times the resignation rate. And so at the last meeting, the board asked Mr. Salters to look at our ability, because we have less teachers in the district than we budgeted, to do a one-time bonus.
Thank you. Mr. Rice.
As far as recruiting and retaining quality teachers, in my acronym SHAPE, I talk about the E is Empower Lexington One teachers. And one of the things that I realized when I decided to run for school board this time, one of the first things I did before I started calling everybody else, I called a lot of the teachers that I know from elementary school, high school, middle school, not my teachers, but my kids' teachers, and just said, hey, what do you need in a board member? What do you need? Because they're the ones who have to carry the vision of the district and bring it to pass. And so I wanted to make sure I was getting their voice as I looked into my campaign. So I think as far as us recruiting and retaining quality teachers, yes, we have to benchmark our salaries and make sure we're being competitive. But we have to keep in mind, in the back of our mind, the money is not the thing that drives most teachers to be a teacher. It's a high calling. It's when I teach you this subject and the lights come on for a kid, so to speak. And those lights come on, and what you don't know is the ripple that you did across the lake by teaching them about science. They come and invent something that we've never ever seen that revolutionizes our world. So we have to give those teachers a voice. And to do that, we have to have a balance. We need to have the elementary, the middle, and the high school teachers together in these committees because they're different at each level. That's how you empower teachers, by giving them a real voice and taking their feedback at the district level.
Thank you. Ms. Henson.
If I knew the answer to teacher recruitment, I would not have a job at the university. I have been working hard over the last 10 years on teacher recruitment, not necessarily teacher recruitment to the district, but just people to the profession. And there are many other reasons that people are choosing to not go into education. But if we focus on teacher recruitment here in our district, let's talk about that. I think that people do want to come and teach in our district. I think there needs to be a culture that's set where other teachers are saying, hey, my district values me. My parents in this district value me. You should want to come to this district because you will be valued as a professional. Now, as far as retention goes, once we get them here, they're here in our district, how are we going to retain them? Teachers go to school for at least 4 years to receive their bachelor's degree. They take qualifying tests, such as the Praxis, in order for them to be certified in our state. And these teachers every year have to continue education so that they can stay certified teachers. These aren't just people that are walking in off the streets. They are highly qualified professionals, and they need to be valued that way. We need parents to value them. Also, we really need to work hard to not micromanage them. And as a parent, I struggle with this with my kids, but as the district, we need to not micromanage our teachers because they are professionals. They're the content area experts, and we need to value them that way. And as parents, we need to teach our kids to respect and value their teachers so that we can retain them.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin.
You know, it's really interesting. The teacher recruitment for this district, I think, is being done very, very well. It is the retention that sometimes comes into play. One of the things that I teach to 36 little squares on a Zoom meeting at least 3 times a week. I don't get to know who they are always in the best way. We don't need quite as much I guess what I would call busy work and things that we have to do to maintain our position in that classroom. Give us time to prepare for our students. The professional development classes are great, but they don't get lessons out to kids. And it's very, very difficult sometimes to understand that a teacher needs time to prepare. So what I would do if I was going to insist or keep an idea of retaining teachers is to support them. Anytime they need your assistance from the district office, make sure you're there. Be understanding. And at very best, encourage them to stay. That is it. If we get support, we're going to stay. And we're going to work hard for you. And I think that's where the final straw is. If you support us, we're going to stay.
Thank you very much. You may be very happy to know that I'm about to ask the final question. And Ms. Snellgrove, you get the first shot at this one. To what extent are you committed to maintaining student education in music and the arts?
Oh, thank you for the question. That's one of my most favorite topics. I think that it's very important that we value music and the arts in our schools, along with humanities. I think that sometimes this gets lost in the fact that the way that society is changing, maybe fiscally it makes sense to direct our children towards paths that might be that might pay more, but just like many people have said, just like teaching, you want to foster your children. You want them to find something that they're passionate about, not because of how much money they're going to make, not because they're going to get rich off of it. And the arts play such a strong role in creating critical thinking in students outside of other classes. They are so important in a lot of students, and it's important that we offer them opportunities and have them be able to express themselves through different avenues outside of test taking or having to check off boxes. They need to be able, in my opinion, they need to be able to find ways to express themselves, and that will lead to more holistic learning.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
Arts and humanities spark and create a lot of things and a lot of people. They open up avenues. I'm a 5-year band student through high school and junior high school. Excelled in art. Used to be a draftsman at one time, a graphic illustrationist. When you talk about the arts and humanities, that's near and dear to me. We've talked about STEM tonight, and one of the things that bothered me about STEM is when we started talking about it years ago is science, technology, engineering, and math. And I said, well, where does language arts fit into that? And to me, the language arts is part of communication. And if you can't communicate, if you can't write and write well, your communication skills are weak. I think that the arts and the humanities help open those doors. Arts and music are another language. To me, they're like Mandarin, they're like Russian, German, French, whatever. They're very important to our curriculum, and I'm a big supporter of the arts, and I think that Lexington One has always excelled in that area.
Thank you. Mr. Price.
Yes, I I would be very 100% committed to maintaining that. I think they are vitally important to the curriculum. I'm an athletics guy, but arts, music and arts are equally as important. Kids find their freedom, they find their voice, they find their expression, and some find their career in it. So I think it's vitally important.
Thank you. Dr. Powers.
Thank you. I have always loved the arts. Coming through high school myself at a public school system here in the Midlands, I played baseball, basketball, and football, but also participated in all of our plays and our choral ensembles. And I think ultimately the arts give you an avenue for expression and self-development that traditional instruction and or sports do not. I think each of those different buckets allow our students to grow, and our job as a district is to offer all of the growing opportunities because students respond to growth opportunities in different ways. So in order to continue to develop 21st century leaders, I think we need to have a strong arts program. What I've also found as you visit schools is oftentimes I find that the love of arts kind of details and dictates the soul of a person. You kind of learn what they believe in and what they're passionate about. The same holds true with schools. So when we visit schools that have a very strong culture, pride in their culture, oftentimes have a very strong arts program. And I think that parlays to us as board with respect to our district. You'll find that in each year, part of our budgeting process is questions about the arts. How are we going to continue to fund and support the arts? That's what we currently do as a board. And I do think it's important that we lead by example. Here in recent years with travel soccer, I haven't been able to, but I am a continued student of the piano. Ann Wilson has been a wonderful teacher to me in years past and continues to teach my children in the art of the piano.
Thank you. Mr. Rice.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite subjects. I do sometimes DJ some of the 8th grade celebrations and 5th grade celebrations and some of the high school welcome homes. So music is it's a universal language. I love music. I would say my support would be 100%. I played trumpet when I was in middle school and high school, marched in the band on Friday nights, and then would play JV football on Saturdays. My wife was a trombone player. My son's a trumpet player. My daughter was in show choir. My daughter was in drama, drama, musical theater, had one of the greatest musical theater teachers here in the district. And at the same time, she also was in dance. So I support it. Music's so much of a universal language. It's the only time where we blend our differences together, but our differences combined together in unity makes beautiful music. And it moves you no matter what your skin color is, what your background is, or what your socioeconomic status is. It also turns on a side of the brain that's creative. All these questions we've been asked have been, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? If you're just STEM focused, you're thinking about logic. But sometimes creativity is what you need to solve a problem, because you have to solve a problem that you may not have solved before. So I think we also need to try and find out how we can start doing arts performances even within this hybrid model that we have now, because I think it's just that important for our kids.
Thank you. Ms. Henson.
My sister is a band director here in Lexington One, so I better have a good answer for this question. So personally for me, singing in the choir and being in the marching band and taking creative dance classes here in Lexington One was such a memorable time for me. And I think about the opportunities my kids have. And there are parents out there who can afford to send their kids to ballet lessons or drama lessons or taking art classes at different art studios here, but some can't. And so just as we were talking about one of our previous questions about equal opportunities, I think it is so important that we continue to have art education, whether it's drama, art, music here in our district. Not everyone's going to be a mathematician or a historian or a scientist. I personally like watching movies or going to plays. And in order to watch, say, a movie at the movie theater, we're going to need actors. We're going to need people who enjoy doing film. We're going to need people who play the music for the background in those videos. And so life isn't always about just, and this is hard for me to say as a math teacher, isn't always about the math or the science or the social studies, but creating well-rounded students here in Lexington One. It's critical that we keep the arts.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin?
I would fully support arts and music, and I have seen Ms. Henson march in the marching band at Lexington. And I will tell you that the band members, I think there's been some studies done for direct correlation for music to math. And I think that it's very interesting that those people excel in mathematics. The art is an expression. We have pictures up at Focus or AES that are done by someone, and they're basically saying to students, do your best, keep it going. This is why we're going forward. So their participation in something like that allows them self-expression and allows them to interface with a wide variety of people from all kinds of socioeconomic levels. And I know that Lexington provides instruments for different levels of students in their at schools. So it is important that we continue this, and I would fully support that.
Thank you. Ms. Green?
Evidently, we've got a small marching band up here in our. If it weren't for marching band, my husband and I met in the marching band at USC. I would not be married, and I would not have 3 children. Music and arts are very dear to me. I think it is important for self-expression. It's important for relaxation. It's important for learning about and understanding other cultures. There's so much that's a part of arts and music education that's so vital. But I think in our schools, a little bit like Ms. Henson said, talking about equal opportunity, it especially, we have great arts programs in our elementary school. We have elementary dance, we have drama, chorus, band, physical art, visual art. But as you move into middle school and high school, particularly middle school, which is such an awkward time, our arts, we want to make sure every student has a place, whether it's on the archery team or on the robotics team or maybe on the dance team or the hip hop team. there's an opportunity through our arts programs to tap into those students that might not be great at math, or they might not be athletic, but you know what? They really love writing stories, or they really love drawing. And so I think our arts programs are just so vital to the health of our students, the mental health of our students, and the success of our schools.
Thank you. Well, that concludes our questions, and so as I promised you when we began, I'll now let each one of you, ask each one of you to just provide a 1-minute summary closing statement, and we'll back to the beginning and start with you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you very much. And again, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for us to face our public and the voters in this district. I, once again, am offering my candidacy as a board member for Lexington One and would like very much to continue the work that we have started. I will tell you that coming on board, I came from the inside. I retired from the school district and came back to serve. And there's no class to teach you how to do this job. And the learning curve is pretty steep, I'll tell you that. I spent the first 2 years on this board with my mouth shut because my grandmother raised me to believe that when you're talking, you're not learning. So I would like to continue. I think that we have a lot of work to do yet. I'm excited about the growth opportunities that we are afforded in this district. I think it's wonderful that we have the base of people that support us.
Thank you. Mr. Price.
We have a great district, and that's why I'm here. I want to serve on the district. For the past several years, I've done a lot of community service work. I've led community outreach programs. I have a heart for children. I have a heart for teachers. I want to advocate for teachers. I want to advocate for all students. And I want to ensure that our district remains, as I said, one of the best in the state. 2 kids in the district, I have a vested interest in their future. So again, just want to make sure that our district remains one of the best in the state. I've mentored kids for the past several years. I've coached youth baseball since 2007. So I love kids. I love seeing them grow. I love seeing them develop, not just develop as, little ball players, but I love seeing them develop as young men. So again, I have a heart for children, and I just want to see our district succeed, because if our district succeeds, then our community succeeds.
Thank you. Dr. Powers.
So again, I just want to thank you for hosting this. I think, again, we need to work on communication, and this is one way our community can learn about each of us. So thank you for hosting this. And hopefully everyone's getting a feel for a little bit about my beliefs and management style, but I'd like to share a little bit about my personal history. I am a product of the American dream, and the reason I believe in public education is because I believe it's the avenue by which every child in this nation can pursue the American dream. I grew up in Richland County, very rural, Hill, Hopkins area. I went to Hopkins Elementary School. My mom was a nurse. My dad was an engineer. Math came easy to me. I got on the state math team. I was shipped to Creighton Middle School and then eventually graduated from Dreher High School and had wonderful academic offerings through that. Met my wife in high school. We met in 9th grade, started dating at the end of 10th grade. We went to Wake Forest together. I was a chemistry and German major, stayed there for medical school and business school, and then returned home here to the Midlands and started my family here in Lexington County. I have 3 daughters, a graduate of Lexington High School, a 10th grader, and a 7th grader, and this is home.
Thank you. Mr. Rice.
For a closing statement, I've talked about SHAPE over and over, probably ad nauseum to some of you out here watching, but when you're dealing with Chris Rice, whether he's on the board, whether he's on the foundation, whether I'm in the grocery store, whether I'm teaching kids about Earth Day as a speaker or career day, what you see is what you get. I just hope that the voters see that. What you see is what you get. I'm the same person at a board meeting as I am when I'm not at a board meeting. So I would just say, as I've talked about SHAPE, STEM emphasis in all schools, H being high quality education for all students. One thing we didn't talk about was accountability and transparency, and I think that's very, very important. Because we're short on time, I won't go into all of that, but go to my website and look, and you can see the videos I've recorded on each letter in SHAPE. And I just ask for your vote on November 3rd and just ask that you help me shape Lexington One.
Thank you. Ms. Henson.
Thank you again for this opportunity. I am so excited and honored for the chance to run for one of the Board of Trustees here in Lexington One. I love Lexington. It's my home. I am passionate about public education. It is my desire to see our district continue to succeed in all that we do. I want this for my children and for all of the children here in Lexington One. I want people to know that I'm approachable. I want to hear, I want to listen, I want to ask hard questions, but be goal-oriented and not just asking the hard questions, but pursuing solutions for those hard questions. I would love your support on November 3rd, and I just thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin.
To coin a phrase used predominantly with the military, the only good day was yesterday. And we are the best district in this state, and I firmly believe that. I, like Mr. Powers, went to school overseas in Japan and Germany and have experienced teaching in both of those areas as a so-called ELL learner of Japanese and German. So I understand what we are working toward. I want to see this district continue to grow. I want it to be number one. I want it to continue to be that on the backs of our very professional teachers, the ones that we need to retain and the ones that we're going to hire in the future. And for that reason, I chose to run. I'm not going to be one of those teachers forever. And this is kind of a legacy for me in hopes that I can continue helping education grow and flourish here in Lexington.
Thank you. Ms. Green.
So you may or may not know that Board of Trustees for Lexington One is a non-compensated position. Many of the school districts in the Midlands and throughout the state, their school board members receive a monthly stipend or an annual salary, usually it's pretty significant, or at least a per diem. And so Lexington One, our board is not compensated, and there's no per diem. So that means every one of these people up here is willing to badly paraphrase Theodore Roosevelt, jump into the arena and roll in the mud on behalf of the students and staff of our district. And to their credit, this is a great group of candidates. And as someone who does love Lexington One, I am delighted that there are so many quality people that want to be leaders in this district. And so I would just say, put your love of Lexington One first and select who you think will lead us forward.
Thank you. Ms. Snellgrove.
I think, I know my primary reason, my only reason for really running is out of an abundance of concern for my child and his future and all children's future, like all of us. And I think that there are some huge issues at hand, climate change, that leadership needs to address. And we need to get to thinking. I mean, it's past time. We need to really have somebody on leadership who's going to continue to bring these issues up until we're doing something about it, because higher levels of leadership in society aren't doing anything. And so we've got to make sure that we raise leaders who can fix this, so they have a safe place to live. Okay? That is why I'm running. And I don't mean to sound so, anyways, that is why I'm running. And I think that when it comes to this issue, everyone needs to feel represented, and we need to make sure that, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. Well, I want to thank all of you again. I can tell you that I know I speak for Pam and me, that it's really been a privilege to be able to be here and to be a part of this process and to hear the kind of thoughtful responses that all of you have given to the questions that we framed. And I hope that we tried to capture in the questions some of the things that it was important to you to talk about. I know I think that'll be meaningful to all of the people that are listening to this, and we thank them for listening, because as I said when we started, our whole purpose is that people go and vote, and that they have the best information they could possibly have to make the choices that they'll be given to make. I want to thank Mary Beth and the staff here at Lexington District 1 for organizing this event, and for all of you who've made this a very worthwhile use of, I think, of everyone's time. Thank you so much.
I'd like to give you a round of applause.